welcome to Biz of Show Live. I'm Candace Donahue.
And I'm Levi Walker.
And we're going to be interviewing some people today who we've worked with or we've crossed paths with them. And we're going to pick their brains to find out more about this show business and how they survived and how they found their own lane in this
Biz of Show. And that's where we get the name. And today we are actually interviewing a very good friend of mine who is a dance agent in LA. And his name is Jim Keith. And I'm really excited about this because Jim has a very interesting spin on education, business education, teaching how he teaches people. We kind of are the same. We're kind of tough, like how we...
Yeah, he's got a lot of tough love. He's got a lot of real practical information for everyone.
It's information that you, like, if you really want to do this and you're really serious about having a career in show business, then this actually is one of the best people to learn from because he will just give it to you like it is. He won't filter anything. He's not going to sugarcoat anything. And I think you guys can really learn a lot from Jim Keith. He's really amazing.
So take out a notepad, write down some things.
Oh yeah, pull out your notepad. You're going to need your notepad for this one because you're going to learn a lot.
And so you wait for it. Here comes the interview.
Oh, but before we have to tell you about our Facebook group.
Yes.
So our Facebook group is a closed Facebook group on Facebook, obviously. Anyway, it's called Biz of Show, just like the show. And in it, we have all sorts of resources for you guys. We've created a couple of online courses. We have a lot of freebies, a lot of really cool things that are going to really help you in your career. Plus, we've got some mentors that are professionals in the business that are there to help you and guide you if you do things like post your headshots or your reel or if you have a question. And we're really excited about it. So we'd love for you to hop on over to Facebook and join us at Biz of Show. In the meantime, let's dive into the interview. Hey everybody, welcome to Biz of Show Live. This is Levi and
Candace.
And we have had a whirlwind of interviews here in Vancouver. What we've been doing is something that we're going to be teaching you, which is to take all your content and kind of get a whole bunch of content done in one day. And then over the course of the next couple of days, I'm going to edit everything down and schedule everything out of our social media. So essentially what we did today was we created about 4 to 6 weeks worth of social media content, which is what we're going to teach you guys how to do with your social media content. So, and this is our last interview of today here in Vancouver, and this is with one of my exceptionally close friends, Mr. Jim Keith. And now a lot of people in New York might not know who Jim is because Jim is an agent in Los Angeles, and but in LA, like, all the dancers in LA know Mr. Jim Keith. The one thing I love about you is your passion for dance and for dancers. And so, and going back to like how you were teaching, that's kind of how you work as an agent. I find a lot of dance agents are, they sugarcoat a lot of stuff and they're not like really direct about stuff. And you're very, like, you're kind of a hard ass. And I like that. Yeah. And I like that because the way that your expectations are much greater, and there's so many people out here who shouldn't be in the business, or they're not working hard enough, or they need to work harder, and a lot of people blame their agents,
or they're disillusioned and they've been lied to, for lack of a better word, their entire careers, and they were told, just do this and just do that, and then it'll make it happen. And it's a very unique dynamic I have with the dance community. They either love me because they know that my authenticity comes from a place of complete respect, because I want to make sure that they get where they need to go in the shortest amount of time possible, or it's just people that are just upset that I'm telling them that they're doing it wrong and they don't want to accept that.
Right. So what are some of the misconceptions that people have about agenting? So the reason that we're having this conversation is because I want people to understand who are entering into the business. Either they might even have an agent, they might be dancers, they might be actors, musical theater performers, like whatever it is. They might be any of those people, but having an agent is really important. It's ultimately, you have to have an agent these days. So what are the misconceptions that people have about an agent, what an agent's job is, how to get an agent, all that kind of stuff? Where's the disillusionment?
I'm going to try to give you the Cliff Notes because that's a very long-winded lot of stuff there because, and I could literally probably take an hour, but I won't. But
well, you know what we'll do is we'll do a long conversation about some of these topics later, and we'll create a course for people to take.
But basically, one of my catchphrases is I only make 10% because I only do 10%. And you have to, as a performer, a lot of people think that when they land a representative that they've arrived and that it's going to be like easy street from here on out. And if anything, it's time to turn the heat up when you get a representative and not be lazy and not kick back and put your feet up. If anything, it's time to now get even more proactive than you've ever been because the stakes are that much higher. The opportunities are that more plentiful for you. And I say opportunities because there are no guarantees. I open the door, but you go through it. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions, I feel like. Another misconception I feel like people have with representation is there's a lot of trust issues involved with representation that people don't touch on. And all they think is that we're out for money. And that's all we care about. And for example, I just had a client who did last season of World of Dance and didn't let me know about it and didn't let me see the contract. And then he also auditioned for this next season coming up of So You Think You Can Dance and made it all the way to the end and finally confessed to the producers that he was just on last season of World of Dance. And they immediately called me because he had fibbed and told them that I knew that he was on World of Dance and I had seen his contract. And in reality, I hadn't. And if I had seen his contract, the first thing I would have told him is, just so you're aware, this show is locking you in for a full year cycle. So for exclusivity. So you're not going to have the opportunity to audition for So You Think You Can Dance this season if you also do this program. Inside of that conversation, I'm not making any money, but I'm still doing my job as a representative and I'm watching out for them and I'm protecting them and making sure that they're fully educated. Because when they hand these dancers these contracts that are like thick as phone books, you know, with small type front and back, that dancer is not going to read that, but I will. Right. Or if I'm not going to necessarily spend 6 hours reading it, I'm going to have done enough of those deals before in the past that I'm going to still be able to help and guide this dancer and just let them know, say, hey, when you do these types of programmings, we had this dancer come up to us and she was asked to do a dating show. And I knew I wasn't going to make any money off of it. And I read the first 2 pages on the contract and I was like, right here, it's exclusive. You're not going to be able to do anything on a competing network. And if you get any kind of audition or job opportunity, you're going to have to run it through the network first. And they're going to have what's called first right of refusal, which is to be able to say that you can or cannot do the project. And if you can't, you know, not do what they say, or they'll sue you and they'll win. You're liable for up to $1 million. I wasn't making a cent off of that. It's a dating show. But she's still my client, and she still looped me in on the job because that's what I'm there for. So that's another misconception, is that we're just like out for the money. It's like, it's okay, you know, I only make $10 for every $100 you make. So it's not that, you know.
Right, and if you book a job and you make $1,000, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, if you have to spend 3 and 4 or 5 hours talking to that person, dealing with contracts, you're not making a lot of money on that job. No. And you know, so it's just, it's little things like that. Those are just a few. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but those are just some of the few misconceptions in regards to representation.
Well, once you have representation, then you have clients that do this, but that kind of thing with you, and they think that you're out for their money. What about, how would we even get you as our representation? Like, what do actors, dancers need to do?
I mean, there's several different ways. I feel like all the major dance agencies have submission pages on their website. You could always submit to them, you know, a headshot, a resume, a reel. Submitting your Instagram profile is really important. We're really keyed into those now because it's consistent quality content that's on that platform. You know, Instagram is also another great pitching tool that we use as representatives, but that's another story. You can attend one of our annual open calls, which is usually twice a year. I prefer those because the videos, I don't know how long you've been practicing that solo. So, so
Sure.
I need to see how you're going to retain choreography in the moment, 8 counts of 8 within 15 minutes, because that's what it's going to be like in a real world scenario.
So you prefer a live than to
I
a
prefer
video?
a live over anything. And then of course the ultimate, you know, the creme de la creme way to submit is through a referral. From a working choreographer or a casting director that we deal with, or a client that we already have,
or a friend. I've sent you a gajillion clients.
Yeah.
I actually think, yeah, I mean, it's all about trust. I think I just sent you someone else, and I think Lindsay's going to reach out to her, which is really awesome.
You know, you're a former performer. You know, you're not just somebody that's like, hey, I think, you know, you know, whatever, you know. So those are the basic levels, but that's how you get in. And you know, sometimes I think a real big thing with representation too is not only are we interviewing you, but you should be interviewing us.
I agree with that
as well. And you know, asking questions like, what is your biggest ratio of bookings, and see if that aligns. You know, more agencies are more commercial oriented, some are more music video oriented, some are more print oriented. How many of me do you already have on your roster? You know, if you're another 5'7" Caucasian blonde hair, blue-eyed girl, and I already have 40 of those, you should probably go somewhere else. You know, it's just you know, are you the right person for this agent that you're going after?
So researching and kind of knowing it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important dynamic that a lot of people miss. I feel like they just compile all the information and spit it out and hope for the best, and
so they make a lot of mistakes.
Strategy, yeah,
right.
yeah.
So what are some of the worst mistakes, like submissions?
Some of the worst mistakes are submitting to me when it's not appropriate. Like, you don't know what I do. Like, my industry is very specialized for what we concentrate on over here. We do fitness professionals, athletes, dancers, choreographers, but yet you're a voiceover person, or you're looking for literary representation, or you're a film director, or things like that. And you've written me this whole long 6-paragraph, 2-page email about how great you are. And I'm just like, but I don't even read people like you. I don't know why you're sending this to me. Or, you know, we get a lot of, because now information is so accessible, we get a lot of people that send us materials from out of town or send us materials from overseas, not knowing that, you know, you need to have an artist, what's called an O1 artist visa or a green card. That could be a whole other conversation, by the way.
Right.
Or that's another one. Or not even being, you know, like I had this one the other day and I was like, let me just test this out. I could be wrong, but let me, you know, she submitted to me from New Mexico and I was like, oh, you're great. I was like, do you plan on moving into LA? And she's like, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, most of our stuff is sourced out of here. She goes, do you get any opportunities in New Mexico? And I'm like, no.
Nope.
So do you see that on my website? Do you see that the 2 main places we represent are LA and New York? No, but you didn't do your research. So you just randomly, you know, submitting, or we get phone calls all the time like, I want to do dance, call me. And then they hang up. And I'm like, I want to win the lottery.
I want to do dance.
I want to lose 15 pounds by tomorrow, too.
I want to be crucified and come back in 3 days. But you know what? I'm on Jesus.
I want to be tan and have blonde hair, but it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's just stuff like that. Like, and it's all under the guise of these people are like, well, I'm trying. No, you're not.
At what point? So let me. Yeah, exactly. Right. So that's the hard ass Jim that I really like. Is you're not trying. What are the things, like if somebody's watching this and they're like, I really think I need an agent. What are the things that they need to have under their belt?
You need an agent, but sure, you need an agent, but are you actually ready for an agent? Have you actually positioned yourself to be attractive enough? And I don't mean like physically, aesthetically, but like your training's in check, your materials are in check, you have some credits under your belts. Like if I ask you, like, and I'm just going to use dance as an example, if I ask you, like, what type of dancer are you? What kind of jobs do you see yourself on? What working choreographers are you fans of? And how do you find yourself, how do you see yourself starting to work with those people? Like those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking in my head when you're sitting in front of me, because that's how, as a representative, those are the pathways that I'm going to start going down in order to sell you to these buyers that want to purchase dance from me. But a lot of people, when you ask them, they don't have answers to those questions. They're just like, I want an agent and I want to be in LA and I want to dance because that's what I see on TV, or that's what I see on my phone, or that's what I see, you know, and they don't know, like, you know, like, are you actually training? Like, do you
know how to do a pirouette?
A lot of times they don't, you know.
I know.
Just because we get a lot of people who are told like they're good, like in the club, you know, or
really?
Or like they're dancers like on the street or something, and then they're like, you know, they feel like they're told like, yeah, you're really good. So there's just no. My whole thing is like, you need an agent. Like, bottom line, there's no way you're going to get around that. There's just that Janet Jackson's not, you know, putting an ad in Backstage. You know what I mean? Like, that's not, Katy Perry's not going to put an ad on Craigslist. You know what I mean? Like,
Bingo.
You're gonna need a representative to get the exclusive jobs. You know, if your goal is just doing non-union commercials for $100 a day for your life, then maybe you can get away with it. But if not, you're going to need a representative. But I think the more important question to the better lane to start going down is, are you ready to have an agent? Have you positioned yourself? Because let me tell you, what's going to happen is you're going to think you are, and you're going to start submitting yourself, and you're not going to get anything back. And then you're going to be defeated. And the defeating is then going to turn into this vicious cycle. And then what you're going to do 4 or 5 years down the line is you're going to be at home with your friends drinking wine saying, yeah, I tried that thing. But it's just so hard. You know, you just got to know somebody. And that's just, I'm not going to cuss, but that's just BS. I know so many people who didn't know a single person when they got into this town, but they approached it the right way. And now they're some of the top working people I know. Now, it's taken a second. It didn't happen overnight. You know, I always tell my dancers, it's going to take you 5 or 6 years. And I'm talking about 5 or 6 years of you consistently, with relentless, ruthless compassion, going to these auditions, putting yourselves in front of these people, taking class from working choreographers and not just your favorites for the 100th time again. Forcing yourself to be in those uncomfortable positions, going through 1,000 no's, knowing that there's going to be a yes behind there somehow, someday, and still keep going and not giving up. That's a career. If you're like, oh, I just like tried it for a year and it's just not like working out, that's a hobby. People are like, well, you have to know somebody. Well, then get to know somebody.
Right?
Like,
figure it out.
Yeah.
My whole thing is this, is that I'm in the middle. I'm all for this new information age that we have. I think it's amazing. I think it's beautiful. I think if you're really focused, I think it can give you such a competitive edge and some beautiful things. But I always start to revert back to my generation, and I'm like, and that wasn't that long ago. So I'm talking about like the late 90s, right? When I was a dancer, like, how did we do it?
Right.
Like, how did
We talk about that all the time.
I didn't have Google.
No, I
I
know.
didn't have YouTube. I had a pager.
Exactly. I didn't even have a
I didn't have, like, when I had an audition, my pager went off. That was crazy. People were like, are you a doctor? I'm like, no, I'm a dancer. Like, it was weird. And then back then they were like, oh, where do you strip? That was a completely different conversation.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but that's how it was. That's how it was back then, you know? So it just boggles my mind that there's this huge disconnect, that there's more information available than ever, yet there seems to be more people bumping into walls more than ever. And I don't
right, and that's why we're doing this project right here, because that's what I see all the time, and she does too. She's got voice. Candace is one of the best voice teachers in the country, in my opinion.
Yeah,
and she's she deals with a lot of college. She teaches at Cornish College of the Arts, and she also teaches at a high school as well. And so she just sees these kids that are like, oh, I'm going to go do this.
College is a whole other conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely the thing that we're talking about with this program that we're starting, because we have the dream versus an actionable plan. Like, where does that, how do we get to that point, and how do we then start becoming decisive enough to say, well, when I walk into the room, it's just going to be magic, and versus, when I walk into the room, I've got my stuff together.
And I'm going to do this. I'm going to sing this. And I've got 75 songs.
Right. I heard from the person that I was taking class with, there was this audition that was happening, and that so-and-so was going to be there, and I needed to talk to them. That's how we used to do it.
Absolutely. I mean, this chick rolled up, got cut at an audition for King and I on Broadway, and literally found out that night, oh, there's an audition for the national tour. And she busted in and said, excuse me, can I sing for you? And she got the job that day on the national tour.
I'm talking about. There's something to be said for our generation, because you really had to seek it out.
Yes,
you really had to,
absolutely
focus. You had to have your ear to the ground. You really had to have your finger on the pulse that was going on to really be a part of the conversation, and really make sure that you were involved in the industry that you chose, whether it was singing or acting or dance or whatever it was. Now I feel like there's a lot of disillusion and confusion happening, because people are literally having this stuff shoved down their throat 24/7. And there's this whole other sect that is starting to surface that feels that they can just do it through osmosis.
And because it's accessible.
Yet we have dancers that we beg and plead with not to self-submit themselves for these copy credit meals, $75, for 8 hours of work jobs, and yet they go ahead and they do it anyway.
And they do it anyway because they don't want to.
And they come back to us and say, "Hey, can you help me with this? It's been 3 months since I've been paid." And
right?
I'm like, no, I can't, because you didn't loop me in on the beginning.
And so much of that happens because they're coming from a place of desperation because they're not getting the work. And the reason they're not getting the work is not because they're not talented and they're not ready for it. It's because they don't have an actionable plan. They don't understand the business. They don't understand how it works. They don't understand how to have the right perspective on the long game of a career. They just want to have their money, and they want to have their money, and they want to have the lifestyle that they want in that moment. They don't have there's no vision for them. They can't say in 10 years I want to be doing this, and this is how I'm going to get there. They can't say it. That's why they're like, I'm broke, I got to pay my phone bill, so I'm going to go do this $75 job. And then when they don't get paid in 3 months, they're like, oh my God, what do I do? And they can't even look backwards and go, maybe I made a mistake.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail right on the head. Hit it right on the head.
It's definitely, I think there's a lot of things that are sewn into that. There's just with media, with the accessibility that we have today, I think the expectation really is that they see something on television or YouTube, different things like that, and they think that whatever's happening was given to them. Do you know what I mean?
It just happened naturally. I mean, I'll admit, when I was 13 years old and I saw, was watching the Tony Awards, I thought I can do that. You know what I mean? I was like that, but I had to have that education, and I realized, we got out in the real world, I was like,
you also have to know, a big part of this too is I think a lot of people are under the misconception of, again, going back to that whole I'm playing full out BS conversation, and really not understanding that they're actually putting themselves in negative cycles of self-defeat, of just being so random and haphazard with their career choices, and not having more action plans, more roadmaps, more specific ways of targeting things. You know, I talk to a lot of actors too, and they're just, you know, oh man, this thing is so hard. And I'm like, well, what are you going out for? And they're like, well, I'm just submitting myself for everything I can, man. And I'm like, but that's why you're suffering.
And I'm going to jump in here. Yeah, I'm going to jump in here and just say to everybody who's watching, you know, we have, with what we're creating with Biz of Show, we're creating courses and things that will teach you how to create this actionable plan. We've been doing interviews with people who've been in this business for years, who have the knowledge and the wisdom to teach you what to do. And right now, you can actually go to leviwalker.com and you can download the Essential Branding Roadmap for Performers, which is a PDF document that I put together that will just kind of give you the basic ideas of how to brand yourself as a performer. So go in there, find it on my website, leviwalker.com. I wasn't expecting to like talk about this. So I don't have all the links, but we'll make sure we put the links, you know, in the blog and anywhere. We'll make sure you can find it. But start there. Start learning somewhere. If you're not in college, this is what I would say. I'm getting passionate. I'm sorry. But if you
we'll have the college conversation at another time. I'd like to jump in on that at one point, but
yes. So, well, I'm just saying, if you're in school right now, if you're in high school, if you're just moved to New York or LA, or if you're in your hometown and you're thinking about it, you need to have a plan. Period. The end. Do not come to the city without getting education. You need to invest in your education, and it is not
training.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry. I'm having a moment, but you got to have training, but not just dance training, voice training, acting training. You need to have business training, and that's why we're here for you to do that. That's why Jim's here, because he knows my passion and Candace's passion, and he's jumping in on this conversation because you guys need to understand we are tired of seeing people waste precious time spinning their wheels and not being completely unable to have the career that you want to have, that you desire to have, that you dream to have.
That's what it really is. It's time wasting, and it's time that you don't have.
It's time that you don't have, and in 5 years, you're just going to have a story of like, yeah, I did a video with Madonna. And,
see that guy in the back eating a cheeseburger? That's me.
And do you want to know?
You're probably not even going to have that.
But do you want to know why I know this? I'm talking to everybody at home. I know this because I did it. I know this because I walked through that. But my path was different, and I found something that I'm really passionate about, which is photography and helping other performers learn from my mistakes and our mistakes, even Jim's mistakes. And we've seen so many people have mistakes that this is an opportunity for you to jump in and take action and invest in something in your career. So, you know, follow us, follow Jim, follow me, follow Biz of Show, follow our stuff, and find out how to make this work for you. And don't stop. Don't stop. Like, you can't stop learning how to do this from other people.
I think one of the things that I want to pick up, you know, like key in with you as an agent is this. We have to figure out how to trust an expert in helping us navigate things we don't know.
Bingo.
We need to be able to trust an expert and not say they're out to get my money. Maybe, just maybe, they know something that you don't know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know where that came from. You know, it used to be back in the day in dance class, if the teacher didn't hound on you, if they didn't critique you, that was worse.
Yeah. Because they'd given up.
They'd given up.
Yes.
That means you disappeared and you weren't even there.
You weren't even worth being able to correct because you knew that it wasn't going to happen.
Now it's like if they critique you or correct you or try and guide you in a certain way, people get very sensitive
and offended.
They get very offended about it. And I'm just like, listen, I have my career. Okay. I'm not trying to, you know, hurt you or, you know, steer you wrong, or I don't have anything to lose. So, you know, it's not about that. I just wish people would be just a little bit more, you know, receptive. And if you're patted on the back, told you're beautiful, amazing, and wonderful every 5 minutes, I really don't see where there's room for growth there. I just don't.
Absolutely. And, you know, I found myself saying a lot in the past year, every time a client comes into my studio, I find myself saying, okay, so I have a very short amount of time with you, and I'm going to make sure that you do this right. So I'm going to be extremely blunt with you, and I'm going to be very hardcore, and I'm going to get you whipped into shape. And by the time you leave here, you're going to know how to work with the camera. You're going to know why you have wearing the clothes that you're wearing, why you're posing like that, why you're smiling while you're not smiling, and how to use these pictures when you walk out the door. So this is going to be intense. And literally, sometimes I see people, and you can see the deer, and they're like, oh my, the headlights, and they're like freaking out, going, oh my God, this guy's intense. But then you see these kids who lean into it, and they go, okay, got it, give it to me. I shot somebody like that the other day.
Yeah.
He was like,
when I teach on convention now, I've been really fortunate to be on this convention for the past couple of years where they've given me this class, and I'm in a live environment classroom in a moment, in an hour, teaching these kids basically how to audition in an hour.
Wow.
And the first thing that I do is I set the intention, and I ask for their permission, and I lock the teachers and the parents in the room with me so they can see. It's a very like
right. Exactly, because that's important.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they come back and feel victimized, and
they cry.
And I asked their permission. I was like, do you give me permission to speak to you in a way that you've probably never been spoken to before? Do you allow me to speak to you in a very laser beam direct manner that's probably going to make you feel very uncomfortable, like you've never felt before, because we only have an hour. And in order to do this seminar the best way I can, I need your permission. Do you give me your permission?
Are you suggesting?
And they say yes. Wait, and they say yes. And then I go, okay, parents and teachers, you heard it. And then I dive in. And literally these kids come up to me afterwards in tears. And the parents are in tears. And they're like, I learned more in your class in this past hour that I have at my studio in the last 5 years I've been there.
Yeah, I really
Are you suggesting that I need to be asking people and not just telling them I'm going to be crazy on their faces? I think I should start asking.
Yeah, no, I get it. I have the long game. I have a studio. I have the long game, right? That thing that you're talking about, you know, how do you keep your customer happy? How do you, that is the long game, the relationship, that whole thing. And I also do the same thing on my first private lesson that I have my student. I say, I want to let you know something. We have to come up with an agreement that you will make at least one mistake every lesson. And we will address it in here before you stand out in front of everybody. This is where we make your mistakes. This is where I say, stop, please. Let's go back and revisit that because I want to believe you.
I have an eerie feeling, though, Candace is way more nice than me or Jen.
I'm not nice.
I'm not nice at all.
I call it ruthless compassion.
Well, I wish I could say that I definitely have a motherly vibe to it, but
yeah, that's nice.
But I want to say to them, and how I say this is, I want you to make money. When you're done with this degree, if this is what you've chosen as your path, I need you to know I want you to get the job. And this is what you're going to need to know to get the job. Okay?
Yeah.
So, and then I say, so we're going to visit some things. So get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So, we need to wrap this up. We've been talking for forever. But I think we should.
You want to touch on?
No, I think we've covered it now because I think we need to continue this conversation, but we need to continue it in a much more in-depth level. So, let's create a course that, is that people, if they're really serious, if they really give a crap about wanting to do this as a business, that they'll sit and listen to us talk for 5 hours. And we'll sit down and we'll create something and go through all this stuff. And hopefully people will listen. I just think a lot of these kids have, this not just entitlement issues, but I think they have some ego issues. Like they think they're better than they are. They don't understand the work ethic that is required to do this. And I think we just need to do something about that. So let's do that. High fives. Yes. So thank you for joining us today, Jim. I almost called you Keith. Why am I going to do that? I've known you for like 10 years.
You do it all the time.
But not me. I've known you for 10 years. Anyway, thanks so much, Jim. I appreciate your time. And we will definitely talk soon. And everybody watching out there, pay attention and sign up for email lists and all that kind of stuff so you can find out when Jim's course is going to come out. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Jim.
Bye.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
Thanks again for watching Biz of Show Live with Levi Walker and Candace Donahue. If you like what you see, please share the video. And of course, join our Facebook group, Biz of Show. Can't wait to see you inside.